Welcome back everyone. Let's go ahead and talk about the Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus and see how it holds up in 2021. Now, first of all, I will tell you 100% of the fact the Galaxy S10 Plus is still a really good device even compared to the S21 Plus that just came out. Now I'll find the cheapest Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus on Amazon, link it down in the description below. You can get it from there and help support the channel at the same time. Now the front of the S10 Plus has that pretty big 6.4 inch dynamic AMOLED display. It's a 1440p panel, and what's really cool about it is that you do have that dual camera setup on the front, which definitely looks more interesting than the standard hole punch displays that we have. There's a little bit of bezel on the top and bottom, but other than that, this is a really good panel for sure. It curves on the sides, and I can only imagine the only thing that this screen is missing is something like, 120 Hz or 90 Hz refresh rate. But other than that, this is still a really good panel for sure. And I've, seen a lot of panels in my day, and this is not a bad panel. This is still a beautiful panel for sure. Now on the bottom you do have the USB Type-C port and a headphone jack, which is really cool on this device. Even though it's, just a couple years old, you still have those type of I/O ports, which is cool. You do have a microSD card slot on this device as well. So even though it's a little bit older, you still have so much capability within this device with just the microSD card slot in and of itself. You have IP certification on this phone too, which is great. And on the back, the standard glass back, no frosted back or anything like that, but it's still a pretty good feature set on this device, because you have wireless charging and reverse wireless charging on this phone. So it still has a lot of features that a lot of the flagship of this year or in 2020, we're just getting. The OnePlus 8 Pro just got reverse wireless charging. Even the Pixels, they don't have, reverse wireless charging. They have wireless charging and reverse charging, but no reverse wireless charging. So this device still has a lot of capability when it comes down to it for sure. And even feeling the Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus in the hand, 100% of the fact is still a humongous reason why to pick it up. It does not feel like a cheap phone. And one thing about it, it doesn't even feel like a crazy big phone. When I've been using the Note 20 Ultras, the S20 Ultras as well, these phones are massive phones. The Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus doesn't really feel like that. Either that's a pro or a con for you. Maybe you want a phone like that. Me personally, I like having a smaller type of phone, but I like having big phones too. And this definitely has that sweet spot. It's a great feeling phone in the hand, and it still looks so beautiful. So in terms of the outside, that pretty much covers it up. But let's go ahead and hit on the cameras. So the Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus has a triple camera setup on the back, and I always call this the triple threat because it's the three most important cameras a phone can have. So it has a 12 megapixel wide-angle lens, a 12 megapixel telephoto lens, then a 16 megapixel ultra-wide sensor. Now what's extremely important about this, and it's very important, is that as long as basically this is what this camera can do. It can zoom in a bunch and it can zoom out a bunch. So you have a bunch of different capability with this device. The macro and depth lenses and LiDAR sensors, I think those are important as well. But these are basically the core functionality that any camera that comes out in 2021 should definitely have. So in my opinion, this camera set is still extremely good. You have the ability of shooting 4K at 60 on the back, and that's extremely important. Obviously we have 8K and all this other stuff, but the fact that this device can shoot, 4K at 60 is still perfectly fine in my opinion. And when you have this type of device, you're not going to feel like you have an outdated camera. What's really good about this device is that the software is also really good in terms of the camera. I don't think the software is amazing, but the camera software is really good because you have so many different features in this camera set. And as I stated before, that's a super important thing to have. You want to have as many features in the camera as you can. It can get a little confusing sometimes, but the fact that this thing has, the craziest, not craziest, but it has really good features for a mobile device is a really cool thing in my opinion. On the front, as I stated before, you do have that dual camera setup. So you have a 10 megapixel wide-angle lens, then you have an 8 megapixel wide-angle lens as well. Now, it's up to you whether you're going to use that other sensor or not, but I think the most important thing about this device is that you do have that 4K at 60, which is really good, and any device that has this type of camera set is pretty much similar to what we're getting nowadays, even in 2021. Really, the main difference is that the newer, Samsung phones can do, 8K and stuff, but I still think 4K at 60 is extremely good. I shoot all my videos on my phones with my camera on my YouTube channel and stuff, all in 1080p, so I don't plan on switching to 4K anytime soon. But that's really it. Definitely for sure when it comes down to it, 4K at 60 is a really good thing to have for both the front and the back of these cameras. So in terms of that pretty much covers it up. Now software-wise, this is another area where I kind of mentioned that this phone it just isn't really amazing, and I think the software longevity has gotten better. This phone did get another software year of support, so I think that's really good. So instead of ending, so it's not ending this year, It's obviously ending next year. So that's really good. I mean, it's going to be getting Android 11 very soon if it already hasn't already gotten it. And it's going to be getting Android 12. Now, I don't know if it's going to be getting security updates after that. I can only imagine. But the one thing I've never really liked about, Samsung devices is their software. One UI is not my favorite software. It's definitely not amazing. Some people may prefer it, but I'm somebody who likes stock Android. I like, stock Android obviously on the Pixels. I like, Oxygen OS that's on OnePlus devices. This is definitely a little bit more bloated. It has gotten better. I've, handled One UI 3 and stuff, but I still prefer, stock Android. So in terms of software, that pretty much covers it up. Now, performance-wise, this thing does have the Qualcomm Snapdragon 855 chipset, an octa-core CPU, an Adreno 640 GPU, and 8 gigs of RAM on the base models, and 12 gigs of RAM on the top-tier model. Now, what I can tell you about the performance of this device is that it's still a really good performing machine. First of all, 8 gigs of RAM on the base models, that's still more RAM than the S21, or it's the same amount of RAM as the S21 and the S21 Plus, but the 12 gig of RAM option on the S10 Plus is more than either the S21 or S21 Plus can actually be equipped with. So that in and of itself is another crazy thing about the S10 Plus. So if you get the top tier model of the S10 Plus, you're getting more RAM than both the S21 and the S21 Plus. But that's even just in the RAM management section. The RAM management is still really good, but really anything you're going to do about this phone is going to be perfectly fast. If you're somebody who does a bunch of light tasks on your phone, if you're just somebody who wants to go ahead, just text people, call people, go on Snapchat, Snapchat people back. The cameras on here are good, like I stated. If you want to go on Instagram and multitask between those apps and even do some schoolwork, if you want to photo edit it, something like that, you're going to be perfectly fine on this device. This is not going to be a slow machine. It's not going to be, under equipped. You still have a lot of capability on this phone. It's only just a couple years old. However, even with, heavier intensive gaming, if you're somebody who wants to, download the craziest games and play them on here, you're probably going to be able to handle it. This phone is not going to be a slow phone, by any means. It's going to be handle pretty much everything you throw at it. But there is kind of a little bit of a downside, and that's the smoothness factor. I've said this year over year over year. Basically, the smoothness factor of this device, it's not really there. It's not really like a super smooth device. It's not like you're going to power this thing on and feel like you still have a super, up-to-date phone as of this point. Because when you have, the 120 hertz refresh rates and all that stuff, that really adds a lot to the whole entire smoothness factor. So that's a humongous thing to keep in mind. The one thing that Androids are really getting better at is making the overall performance smoother because of the refresh rate. I really wish it would be because of the software, but with the newer versions of software and the newer phones, they're definitely getting better. But for sure, when it comes down to it, this device, the fastest, the speed is all there. It just so happens that the smoothness factor just isn't really there right now. But in terms of performance, that pretty much covers it up. Now, ending it off with the battery life, this device has a pretty big 4,100 mAh battery inside of it. Now, like I stated, this thing also has reverse wireless charging and all that good stuff, which is great. Is it crazy? I mean, it's kind of still a really good battery. We have gotten pretty big batteries recently with other devices, but I think this device still has a really good battery inside of it too when it comes down to it. So in terms of battery life, that pretty much covers it up. Now, to kind of sum up this whole entire video and to answer the question, is the Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus still worth it in 2021? Well, this is pretty much what I'll tell you. Okay, first of all, just let me hit on the pros real quick. I mean, this device has a beautiful display in front of it. I mean, it's still a really good panel. It's not ugly. It has so much capability with that dual camera setup on the front. It's such a nice touch, and it still looks like a beautiful phone. You have USB Type-C port, headphone jack with Samsung DeX, which is awesome. The microSD card slot on this device as well is something that none of the Samsung Galaxy S series of 2021 brought. So this phone has that capability, which in and of itself is another cool thing about it. The glass on the back with the reverse wireless charging is amazing. It still feels like a very premium phone. It does not feel cheap at all. That triple camera setup on the back as well is another huge thing about this device. I mean, when you pick up this phone, it's not going to give you a bad experience. It's going to have a beautiful camera setup on it. It's not going to feel cheap. It's definitely not going to give you like an experience that's, you're going to feel like you have a 2019 phone or that you have a 2-year-old phone. If you pick up this phone this year, even next year, you're still going to feel like you have a pretty current phone. Now, not everything is perfect. There are a few downsides, not an insane amount, but the software definitely isn't something I would brag about. I think the software support has gotten better. It's getting an extra year of support. So I think that's something that's worth bragging about. But I don't think, One UI is my favorite. To you, it may be. But I think something like, stock Android on this device would have been perfect. You can always throw a custom launcher on here and be, perfectly fine. But I think the Galaxy S10 Plus, its strong suits are the hardware. What's inside, what's outside. The software isn't really the strong suit besides the longevity, but if you're okay with One UI 3 or One UI 2 or whatever you get this phone on, then I think you're going to be having a really, really good experience with this device. You can even pick up this phone at this point and pick it up and sell it off next year and still feel like you had a really good experience with it. Really, whatever you're going to do with it on a day-to-day basis is going to be perfectly fine, and I'll definitely tell you, if you're planning on picking up the Galaxy S10 Plus, I would definitely recommend it for sure. So that really pretty much covers it up. Like I stated, if you want to pick up the S10 Plus, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. If you guys have any other questions as well, let me know in the comment section as well. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count. So it means so much if you guys can hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my other channels. More importantly than everything else, I'll have every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.